Imagine you're visiting a zoo, watching a lion devour its meal. You might wonder, what's on the menu for this lion? Interestingly, lions and other carnivores aren't too picky when it comes to meat. They can feast on anything from beef to chicken to fish. Now, glance over at the giraffe nibbling on some leaves nearby. Unlike the lion, the giraffe is much more selective about what it eats. In fact, feeding it anything outside its natural diet could make it seriously ill. Why are carnivores able to eat a wide variety of meats, while herbivores are limited to specific plants? This distinction reveals fascinating differences in their diets and highlights some surprising challenges, especially for zoos. Let's explore why feeding carnivores is relatively simple, while keeping herbivores well-fed is far more complex and costly. For carnivores, the rule is straightforward. If it's meat, it's good to eat. Whether it's a lion, tiger, or wolf, carnivores are designed to consume animal flesh. They don't care whether that flesh comes from a cow, a chicken, or a deer, because animal tissues, regardless of species, are biochemically similar. For example, muscle tissue from a cow has the same basic structure as that from a fish. Carnivores have evolved digestive systems that efficiently break down animal proteins and fats, without the need for adaptations to specific prey types. This makes feeding carnivores in zoos quite simple. Zoos can purchase meat in bulk, usually from common sources like beef or poultry, and feed it to a variety of carnivores. Since these animals don't need a specialized diet, a zoo can keep costs low and logistics manageable by using the same meat for lions, tigers, and other carnivores. Herbivores, however, face a very different reality. Plants are not as straightforward as meat. In fact, many plants are toxic to some degree. Plants have evolved defensive mechanisms, such as toxins and anti-nutrients, to avoid being eaten. Herbivores must evolve specific adaptations to detoxify or avoid certain harmful compounds. As a result, while carnivores can eat almost any meat, herbivores are often restricted to specific plants. Take giraffes, for example. They feed on specific leaves, like those from the acacia tree, and have evolved to process these leaves while neutralizing any harmful compounds. However, if you tried to feed a giraffe something like grass, something that cows can eat easily, it could make the giraffe sick because its digestive system isn't equipped to handle it. In zoos, this creates a logistical challenge. Each species of herbivore often requires a specific diet, similar to what it would eat in the wild. For instance, giraffes need a steady supply of acacia leaves or similar plants. Elephants require massive amounts of grass and other plant material, and pandas are famous for needing a constant supply of bamboo, which is difficult to source in large quantities. To meet these needs, zoos often have to import specialized plants or even grow them on site, adding significantly to the cost and complexity of feeding herbivores compared to carnivores. Another key difference between carnivores and herbivores is the volume of food they need. Carnivores get a lot of energy from relatively small portions of food. Meat is energy-dense, full of proteins and fats that pack plenty of calories into a small serving. A lion, for example, might only need 15 to 20 pounds of meat in a day to meet its energy needs. Herbivores, on the other hand, have to eat huge amounts of plant material to meet their energy requirements. Plants are less calorie-dense than meat, so animals like elephants must eat large quantities to sustain themselves. An elephant might eat as much as 300 pounds of food per day, while a lion consumes only a fraction of that amount. This difference in volume further complicates feeding herbivores in zoos. Zoos not only have to source the right plants, but must also provide enough of them to keep the animals healthy. For example, feeding an elephant requires vast quantities of food each day, adding to the overall cost and resource requirements. Feeding herbivores is a zoo's logistical nightmare. Unlike carnivores, which can eat from a single bulk supply of meat, each herbivore species requires a specialized diet. Zoos often have to import large quantities of specific plant types from across the globe, driving up costs and creating resource challenges. For example, pandas rely almost entirely on bamboo, which may not grow locally, forcing zoos to import it or grow it themselves. Meanwhile, elephants need enormous amounts of plant material daily, which can be incredibly expensive to provide. In contrast, feeding carnivores is simpler and cheaper. Zoos can order meat in bulk and distribute it across various carnivores without needing to worry about special dietary needs. Whether it's beef, poultry, or fish, the same meat can feed lions, tigers, and other carnivores with little fuss. It's surprising, but feeding a meat-eating lion can actually be less expensive than feeding a plant-eating elephant. Since carnivores can eat any type of meat and don't need specific diets, they're much easier to feed. Herbivores, on the other hand, are selective eaters, requiring specific plants in large quantities, which makes feeding them far more expensive and resource-intensive. So, why are carnivores easier to feed than herbivores? It comes down to simplicity. Carnivores can eat a wide variety of meats, allowing zoos to keep feeding costs low and logistics simple. Meanwhile, herbivores are highly specialized in their diets and require specific plants, often in large amounts. This not only increases the cost, but also complicates the entire feeding process. In conclusion, carnivores and herbivores have very different dietary needs, and this difference is most evident in the challenges faced by zoos when feeding them. While carnivores can eat almost any type of meat, herbivores are much more selective and require careful planning to ensure they get the right kinds of food. Feeding carnivores is often simple and cost-effective, but feeding herbivores poses constant challenges in sourcing the right plants and providing enough food to meet their needs. Next time you visit the zoo, take a moment to appreciate the complexity behind feeding the animals. While the lions may be easy to please, keeping the giraffes and elephants well-fed is a far greater challenge. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content exploring the fascinating world of animals and the science behind their care. Stay tuned for more.